Director Krennic introduces these guys who claim to control the public opinion of Ghorman. They say that if you plant the correct seeds in the correct order in the correct media outlets, you will eventually sway the public opinion.
Oh my gosh. We're seeing the same thing right now with Palestine.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's the same thing repeating itself.
Mm-hmm.
And yet people don't see it for what it is because of the way the media chooses to portray it.
That's what they do, and that's what they're doing in Andor. Fuck the Empire. Welcome back to This is the Wayseekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. And my God, what a great time it is to be a Star Wars fan because Andor is back. Good Star Wars is back on the menu. We just watched the first 3 episodes of season 2. I'm still trying to catch my breath. It's tense, it's gritty, it's exactly the kind of Star Wars that punches you in the gut in the best way possible. So I'm excited to talk about it. I'm here with my Rebel co-pilot, Scotty Holiday, to talk about it. Scotty, after watching these 3 episodes, give me your overall thoughts. How do you feel right now?
I feel pumped, like anxiety pumped, but also like having a great time pumped. It was very fun, very chaotic, very campy. And then it was straight into the stressful and intense Andor by the end. So it was kind of everything I needed in a season 2.
Yes.
Like a season 2 premiere.
100%. And I think a big question we were asking before this episode released, or these episodes released, 3 episodes, was can it live up to season 1? If not, do even better? Is it too early for me to say that they have? Like, I fucking loved those 3 episodes, and it highlighted exactly what I loved about season 1. I feel like there's a lot more action, there's a lot more things to focus on, but at the end of the day, it still had that aspect that felt so relatable and human, and every single thing that happened, I feel like I felt the emotion. Vel and Cinta seeing each other after all these years, and the intense anger and pain and frustration of what happened to Bix at the end of the episode when that Imperial officer literally tries to, a word we can't really say on YouTube, but I don't want to take away the intensity of that. Very important themes here, and I feel like I felt every single one of those emotions, those gut punches, the celebration of Cassian escaping, of that jungle moon that looks a little recognizable. So yeah.
That reveal.
But I want to ask you, Scotty, do you feel like it lived up to season 1 and gone beyond it, or am I just jumping the gun here by saying I think it went beyond season 1?
I find that really interesting because as I was watching it, while I was really, really into it and really, really enjoying it, I was a little worried that people were going to be like, this is weird, this is different, because until we get to like really the 3rd episode, to me, the tone feels a bit different. It feels a little bit more like campy and chaotic, like I said, which that was definitely there in season 1, but it was different. And maybe it's because, and I kind of thought about this myself, we're so used to everyone being in like the pressure cooker of Coruscant. These people are out of Coruscant. They're out in the galaxy doing things. Half of our cast is at a wedding of all places. And, weddings are just chaotic and crazy. And by the end, like I said, we get to the stressful, anxiety-inducing Andor that we all know and love. And while I loved it the entire time, I am a little worried some people are going to give it kind of crap for not being exactly the same thing at first. So I found it interesting that you said it was like better and like everything that you wanted, and so much like season 1. Not that I disagree. I just felt like it was more of my flavor. Like I felt like it was more for me.
That makes sense. I feel like with the show, obviously we know that they have a lot of story to get through, condensing 4 seasons into this 1 season. So that naturally is going to have a lot more for them to cover, and things are going to be have to be faster paced. But I don't know. I feel like everything that I enjoyed from the first season was still there. They still had the time to take things slow and, really dive into things. I mean, the show starts off with Cassian Andor talking to this Imperial inspector. And of course, only Andor would be a show bold enough to start this whole thing with an Imperial inspector being nervous about, joining the rebellion or doing rebellious activities. It's something that, like, you don't really get to see focused on in Star Wars. Something,
Mhm.
someone so minuscule as an Imperial inspector for TIE fighters. But it was just such
Yeah,
a cool moment that they expanded on, and they spent a lot of time on that with Cassian, reassuring her and letting her know she's, doing a good thing here, taking her first steps into a rebellion, you know. So immediately off the jump, I'm like, okay, this is kind of the same vibe here. But at the same time, we've spent a lot of time with these characters. We know them. It's not like we have to have introductions of like Brasso,
exactly.
Bix, and things like that. We're able to just immediately get into the action. And maybe that's where it feels a little different. I don't know. I haven't seen what other people thought. I just know for
I haven't
me,
either.
yeah. And so I just know for me, I was like, wow, like they're doing it. I just enjoyed this arc a lot, and felt every single emotion that came with it in every moment. So I don't know, maybe it's
Oh,
just like
yeah.
recency bias, but I feel like they're in it. They're doing even better than season one, and I'm so excited to see where the show goes.
Yeah, it's in you brought up exactly what I was hoping for when we talked about this previously and when we talked about the trailers and stuff. We know our characters, so we can just jump right into it. Whereas we had that slow burn in season one where we got to know
Mhm.
everybody. Now we can really focus on their arcs and where they go as characters. And we definitely did a lot of that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think we should just immediately get into it. So the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna break it up by the different perspectives. We know we had Cassian and the Rebels, Leida's wedding, and we're going to talk about all of them. And first, we'll start with our main character, Cassian Andor, and his journey. It all starts, as I mentioned, stealing a TIE fighter with the help of an Imperial inspector. He's successful in stealing it, but it's hella messy. There's so
Yeah.
much chaos. It wasn't the one that he was trained to fly. But I loved that moment, and I loved seeing someone be bad at piloting, because I feel like in Star Wars a lot of the times characters are just thrown into the pilot seat and they're really good at it, and
Mhm.
we never get to see like a bad pilot.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, a lot of these characters also usually have the Force, so
Hmm.
that's there to help them. Cassian couldn't even figure out how to like sit,
Hmm.
and like he had to couldn't even figure out how to get the chair to sit in and like where to position his hands. He literally, we all think he's gonna fly forward right out from the trailers, and sure enough, he goes in reverse and
Hmm.
slams the thing. But that TIE Avenger is a tank because it
Hmm.
took a lot of hits up against walls and
Yeah.
canyons, and it was really fun though. I really enjoyed it, and it was nice, like you said, seeing Cassian kind of struggle and
Hmm.
kind of work his way into getting
Hmm.
forward to hopefully get off that planet. I did think he was going to go pick up his Imperial Inspector friend.
I
I
know.
hope she made it out okay.
I know. And I thought about that, and I was like, I guess it is part of the tragedy though. Like Cassian doesn't know what happened to her. You can only hope that everything went well for her, that she didn't die like she was scared of. But, you know,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's all part of the rebellion. As Nemec said in season one, all of these things will eventually break the camel's back, and everything will all come rushing. And we see that in A New Hope, and all of this is leading up to it. But yeah, it definitely was heartbreaking to think like what possibly happened to that Imperial inspector. And I also really liked seeing Cassian shoot at the troopers, because he had that moment where I feel like he was thinking, I'm fighting these bastards for real, like Luthen said in
Hmm.
season one, because he just, even amidst all the chaos and the struggle, he couldn't help but like smirk after he blasted that one range trooper out into space. I thought that was
Oh
such a
yeah.
good moment. He's in it now. Like this is the Cassian we know.
And that moment honestly felt like I was playing Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah.
shooting it, especially when you're in, what is it, Zepho, and they've got the stupid rocket launcher guys who are
Hmm.
just shooting the crap out of you, or Ilum. It felt
Yes.
just like that. It probably helped that it was snowy and we're in an Imperial base, but I was like, "Yes, fuck him up." And
Yes.
I specifically loved the line too that he said to the inspector when he says, "You're coming home to yourself. You've become more than your fear." I
Hmm.
really like that, and that really stood out, and it kinda shows how Cassian's grown in this time
Hmm.
that we haven't been with him over the past year.
Yeah, and I think that's like a glimpse into how this season's going to go with the years in
Mhm.
between, or the 1 year in between each arc. We're going to get thrown into these stories, and that it's kind of how this one started. Even though it's the first arc, we were still thrown into it. I feel like in
Yeah.
other shows we might have seen like Cassian actually talking to this pilot named Porco that he was stealing the ship for, and we would have seen all that play out. Instead, we're thrown into it with a conversation with this Imperial inspector. Not even the conversation. The first thing we see is just her inspecting the ship. Kind of a
Yeah.
long drawn out thing of it, but it just it works. It feels
It's
so good.
it's those long, quiet Andor scenes that,
Hmm.
they got so many people talked about those great scenes in season 1, and that's exactly how we start. So, yeah, it was a great return to form.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of that pilot named Porco, Cassian gets to this jungle location. At this point, we're not sure what it is, but we know
Yeah.
that the ship was stolen for the rebellion, as Cassian later reveals. But when he gets there, the pilot that he was working with, Porco, is not there. Instead, Porco has been killed by a group of rebels that's now on Cassian's ass. Um,
Mhm.
and they explained that the that Porco was, hostile, and they had to shoot him. And I don't trust him. I don't believe him. This group of rebels seems very, very eager to get in a fight, especially a fight
Yeah.
with the people that are on their side. Very
I had so
frustrating.
many thoughts about this arc. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be completely honest. I fucking hated them,
Yeah.
and every time we had to go back to catch up with them, I was like, "Oh my god," they were just so infuriating, and that's probably the point.
Hmm.
Like, it's showing how incompetent, like, rebellion is at this point,
Hmm.
and it just furthers why it takes them time to build up and then finally come
Hmm.
together as one united group. And we
Yes.
see this in this little example of this one group, like you said, they're fighting against each other
Hmm.
instead of working together to get off the planet, which is what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
But I was just like, they're so god annoying.
Yeah.
And then as I'm watching this, I was like, this is how K2SO is going to fit into this season,
I
because
thought the same thing.
I'm seeing these little comedy bits. Even Cassian
Yes.
not being able to fly the ship, I was like, okay, this is how it's going to make sense.
Yeah. No, I literally wrote the same thing in my notes, that we're seeing those humor moments, and it's kind of paving the way for K2SO to come in there with his dry humor. But
Yeah.
I totally agree. The thing that was frustrating about them is, even after they learned that they were infighting against someone that is literally supplying,
Supplying. Mhm.
their rebellion, and they still decide to tie him up and keep him captive, even after he's helping them, giving them advice. Very
Yeah.
frustrating, very annoying, and it literally happens in the real world. There's all these different subgroups of, I guess, let's say, the Democrats in America. There's all these different subgroups, and they all fight against each other for not being like the perfect progressive, the perfect liberal, and things like that. And they lost. There's so many Democrats on different sides of the fence that they didn't all come together. They didn't all vote for the same person, and they lost. And if they all
Yeah.
came together and stopped, pitting themselves against each other, and realize that they have a common enemy, things would have gone great. That goes even beyond the Democrats. That goes with all of America and the actual enemies that we have. And people talk about Republican and Democrat, but a lot of the times we're suffering the same things. We want the same things. We want to see people prosper and be able to live in this country safely and affordably.
Mhm.
um, but at the end of the day, we're stuck fighting each other. And quite frankly, the government knows that, and they want that, because if we come together, we are stronger than them. And that's exactly what we're seeing
Yeah.
played out here in Andor. And I think it's
Yeah.
interesting too that we started with this, because we know that the last arc is most likely going to be Yavin 4, and we're going to
Mhm.
see all these groups finally come together and put aside their differences, hopefully. And hopefully some of these
Yeah.
rebels, as annoying as they are some of the rebels we will see on Yavin. And knowing now that that planet is Yavin, I think it's possible.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I was like, are any of them actually gonna make it to, like, the rebellion on Yavin at the end?
Hmm.
But even if one of them makes it, that will feel really satisfying. And you bring
Hmm.
up so many good points. Like, you can even dial it back to such a minuscule amount and talk about the Star Wars fandom.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
We all
100%.
we all love Star Wars,
Hmm.
but we're fighting each other. Granted, and in both situations, whether you take it real world or small like the fandom,
Right.
like, there's shit that we're not gonna agree with
A hundred
and
percent.
are gonna continue to fight that.
Hmm.
But, at some point, I don't know, I don't wanna say compromise, but, like,
Yeah, 100%. And I do wanna clarify, I don't mean, like, let's come together and put human rights aside, like, no, that is what we're fighting about, that if you are on the side of these humans don't deserve rights, you are the ones that we need to band together and fight against. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that goes without saying. But yeah, this group, it's frustrating. It was a cool dynamic, though, I guess, with the 2 leaders, or the wannabe leaders now that the leader Maya was her name. They're arguing over who gets to be the leader, and it's literal stupid bullshit like that literally caused them to go in an all out war against each other, or not a war, but a battle, a pretty significant battle that lasted at least a day.
Yeah, they were just wasting time, and then they, quote unquote, try to resolve the issue finally playing rock paper scissors.
Literally
Like, it's
crazy.
so childish.
And they look like children playing the fucking game, all serious about it.
Yeah.
And Cassian uses that as a distraction to finally get the fuck out of there. I was hoping that, because we kind of saw it at the start when he was first trying to escape, is get that one guy on his side, be like, if we join together, we can get out of here. I was kind of hoping that he was gonna leave with somebody, but
Yeah.
I guess that's just, the redemption person in me that wants to see a character that started off annoying as fuck go on to be a hero of the rebellion on Yavin.
Well, there's still time for that to happen.
Yes.
We're only 3 episodes in. We're only in week 1 out of 4, so
Right.
we'll learn pretty quick,
Yeah.
hopefully.
100%. And yeah, that pretty much like wraps up the Cassian and the rebels part of it, because when he escapes, a dinosaur comes in, or a dinosaur
God, I
like
know.
creature comes in, attacks everyone. He's able to escape. He has his TIE fighter that he cannot pilot. Correct me if I'm wrong, that was confirmed to be a TIE Avenger, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
I don't know
It's
what that
confirmed on
means, but
StarWars.com and, like, the episode guide. It's a ship that was, like, specifically made in one of the older Star Wars games, and it was, like,
mm,
officially now brought into canon.
I see. Okay, then yeah,
I don't
that's
remember
pretty
what
cool.
game it was, but yeah, it's TIE Avenger,
Mhm.
confirmed on StarWars.com. So
That's pretty cool then. That's cool to see. But yeah.
it's spacey. It's got a
Yeah.
spacey little cockpit in there. They could have people
Mhm.
in the back, and then it was crazy. I was like, okay, you can fit a
Yeah.
couple people in here. No wonder they didn't make a lot of them.
I know. I know. And poor Cassian doesn't know how to fucking fly it. It's not the one he trained with. I thought that was so funny. But
I know.
as he gets out of there, and we kind of, teased this, it's shown that that planet was Yavin 4, the planet that the rebels eventually all come together on. It's the rebel base we see in Rogue One and A New Hope. So that's really exciting, because that is something that I kind of always wondered, is how did the rebels choose that location? And I wonder if that's something we'll actually get to see play out, like Cassian being like, "Oh, I know a place," and then they all go there. Yeah, I think that would be cool. But when Cassian leaves, he calls Clea. He's out in space and is really just looking for a place dry, he says, to just
Yeah.
relax. He's not really looking to get to Mina-Rau yet, but Clea tells him that he cannot call home, and that worries him. And he just immediately flies off to Mina-Rau to see what the fuck is going on there, where Bix, Brasso, and Willman are, and all the people that he cares about that we see at the end of season 1. I am almost like, Cleo, what the fuck? Why did you say it that way? Like, she had to have known that that was going to freak him the fuck out and immediately rush there. And I just kept thinking, oh my god, like, if Cassian gets there amongst all the things happening on Mina-Rau, it's going to cause chaos. It's not going to be good. He's not going to be saving anybody like he wants to. I just had so much anxiety of him actually getting back there amongst everything that was happening there.
I mean, I think that just goes to show that really the one in charge of the operation is Luthen,
Oh yeah.
because I think Luthen could have kept Cassian from making that decision, but
Hmm.
Clea, like you said, she didn't pick her wording carefully like
Yep.
Luthen would, and that's why Cassian just doesn't acknowledge her. I did find it really interesting too that everyone's like on a first name basis now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Because they even said Bix's name. They know where she's at. They're in contact
Mhm.
with Bix on Mina-Rau. They're in contact with Cassian.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting just hearing like both Clea and Luthen mention Bix, but also obviously Cassian by name, because we know Clea was not down with bringing anybody else in,
Yeah.
and Luthen was just kind of like, well, you don't have a choice. We need him.
Yeah, we need a rebellion. Yeah, we're starting to see that rebellion form, and I think that's really cool. Um,
Oh, yeah, but we're starting to see the cracks as well. So,
yeah, and the drama of it all. Oh, I cannot wait till we start talking about Leida's wedding.
oh my
But
god, I know.
I think that we should get into Mina-Rau next, where Cassian was headed. So all the way back to the beginning again, we know that Brasso, Willman, B2 Emo, and Bix, they all reside in a home on Mina-Rau with a local woman named Tally. And fucking shout out to Tally. Shout out to the legals that are protecting the illegals, or the
Mhm.
illegal immigrants. It's it's something we need more of in the real world, and so fucking shout out to her. I'm glad that her and Brasso had each other. They live a peaceful life. They harvest grain on Mina-Rau, which is seen as like an essential thing. So even though they're immigrants, they're kind of allowed to be there, and they feel protected by the fact that they are running an essential business, pretty much something that
Yeah.
Mina-Rau needs to exist.
Yeah, and there was a big focus on the fact that there are a lot of people there who are not from Mina-Rau.
Mhm.
I even wrote down in my notes like they use phrases like legal, illegal, undocumented,
Mhm.
checking visas,
Yeah.
like, and it was such a real world parallel that unfortunately is like in the realest, like most nightmarish form right now in our
Mhm.
world.
Yeah.
So it was really Tony Gilroy couldn't have planned that out,
Right.
but it just happens so perfectly, and
Mhm.
it makes me hope that people watching the show, those people that like don't catch on to these things,
Mhm.
maybe they will hearing those words,
Yes.
I'm legal, I'm undocumented, the
Mhm.
empire's checking visas, we don't have visas. I'm like, maybe this will make people think
Mhm.
and like have things click in their head that
Yeah.
it's such a, oh well, it doesn't, I'm not affected by this issue, so I don't worry about it.
Right.
But like you said, like these people who are legal, like Brasso's girlfriend,
Mhm.
even though she is fine and she doesn't have to do anything to protect herself, she's using her privilege
Yes.
to protect people who don't have that privilege and whose lives are at stake.
Yeah.
We're seeing that with ICE right now. We're
Mhm.
seeing people being sold to prisons.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, ugh,
yeah, it's crazy how much it parallels the real world. And as I always say, Star Wars, it's a great way to show people, hey, you're rooting for these rebels, right? Well, the same thing's happening in the real world. Hopefully, you can root for those people too. Um,
yeah,
And it's funny because we talked about this on the podcast before, with Tony Gilroy saying that he's not necessarily picking and choosing things that are happening today. It's just that history often repeats itself, and we're seeing
yeah,
the same things here. But I couldn't help but think about the Salvadorians that, in 2001, they were told that they could have citizenship or temporary citizenship, seek refuge in America after they had these devastating earthquakes. They couldn't live in El Salvador anymore, and this promise allowed them to work here legally in the United States, and because it's unsafe to return home. And a lot of them were contributing to society, paying taxes, becoming essential workers, homeowners, parents of, US citizens that were born here. And then suddenly Donald
mhm,
Trump comes into office, and this was in his first term. Not even talking about his current term, where he fucked this situation up even more, but he kind of pulled that promise. For a long time, they were renewing the Salvadorian status because they couldn't go back home. Trump removed that program, and now they're all getting deported, even though they were fucking promised that they could live here and make a life for themselves here and built their lives on that promise. They changed the fucking rules, and now they're breaking the
yeah,
law. And so they need to be deported, and now everybody calls them, criminals and shit like that. And we're seeing people that have done nothing wrong being deported out of a place that they've called their home since 2000 fucking one. And it's the same
yeah,
thing we saw here, where, like I said, Bix, Brasso, they're harvesters, and they literally bring this up multiple times throughout the episode. Even the Imperials themselves, they say they're bringing essential work to the planet. We need these things to happen or there's no harvest. We need this work to happen or there's no harvest. And suddenly they pull the rules, and now they're randomly checking visas and arresting people for not being legal, even though these people were safe beforehand, before the Empire came in and fucked everything up. It had been 10 years apparently since anything like this had even
Yeah.
happened. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's definitely something that I thought about, that real world connection. I could not help but think about the Salvadorians
Yeah.
that were promised, you know?
The main thing I always think about is how America was built by immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we're watching a country that we live in that was built with immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
and we're watching generations later going back on, like, people feeling like they're better, like, "Oh, I'm an American." Yes, but where's your family from? Where does your line trace back to? Because it doesn't necessarily start in America. You
Absolutely
have
not.
immigrants in
Mm-hmm.
your, like, generations and your lines in your family, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it just infuriates me. I'm like, just because you were born here, other people are born here too, and that makes
Yeah.
them American. Oh, it frustrates me so much. I'm just like, we're a country built on immigrants.
Yeah.
So why are we now trying to act like we're better than
Mm-hmm.
people that are immigrating at this stage in life?
Literally. And even that parallels to the Empire that literally didn't exist 15 years
Yeah,
prior to this episode, now coming in and thinking that they can rule over and decide who's legal and who's illegal because now they rule
yeah,
Mina-Rau. You didn't exist 15 years ago. So like, how the fuck could you possibly come in and dictate a planet that's probably existed for centuries, you know, thousands and
yeah,
thousands of years? It's crazy. um
yeah. On a separate note, though, I really did like this planet's design. I
yeah.
really liked the kind of the cities within the
Oh yeah.
standalone mountains in the fields. I thought that was really
Hmm.
cool.
And being able to use the grass as kind of like walls, or you know, when
Mhm.
Willman and his little girlfriend were hiding behind them, you know, little romantic
Yeah.
moments. And yeah, to go back, I really loved seeing, before all this chaos ensued with the checking the visas, seeing these people from Ferrix, where we saw what happened. They can't go back to their home, living a relatively normal and peaceful life. You know, Vix is
Mhm.
traumatized and she has these nightmares,
Oh
but
my god, I know that Dr. Gorsh jump scare.
I know, I thought that was fucking real. I was like, "Oh my god, we're
Me
we're we're
too.
starting with this," but I
And they
also
did the camera like every serial killer movie where,
Mhm,
like, you're seeing it from the, like, killer's point of view,
mhm.
where they're, like, stalking the victim. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, and then
and
the
then you see
mirror
him in
shot
the
where it's
mirror.
Dr. Gorsh. I'm like, "Ah!"
Yeah, it's fucking terrifying. And but I also couldn't help but think, like, even in that sequence, you see Willman sleeping outside, you see their door is wide open. So they're not
Mhm.
necessarily terrified at all times, you know, of
Yeah.
and until of course this all happens. But it was just nice to see that, you know, seeing Willman after everything with his father in season 1 and literally having to create a bomb at such a young age because he needs to fight for his home.
Mhm.
Now he kind of has a moment to relax and have a little girlfriend, and you know, Bix even gets to tease him about it like a older sister, you know.
Yeah,
So it was just nice to see them living peacefully before all this chaos ensued in episode 3 and fucking Brasso died. Fuck
I
you, Tony
cried.
Gilroy, but not
I
really.
cried about it, but
I
I'm
know,
sure you expected that I was gonna cry at that. I didn't think they were gonna get me in the first arc, but yeah,
they got
by the
me.
end of it, I was like, you cried?"
I didn't really cry, but I definitely teared up. I
Mm.
definitely, yeah, yeah, and you
I'm
know,
not alone.
that's
Haha, I can
basically.
make fun of you.
Yeah, exactly. And as you know, that's basically the equivalent of like you sobbing. You know, me tearing up, that means that you probably ugly cried.
We gotta work on that, Austin. We gotta open you up a little more emotionally, but that's we can do that off air.
Well, I definitely felt other emotions though, intense emotions, because this one Imperial officer pissed me off so fucking bad before he even committed a horrible atrocity, like the worst thing that a human being could possibly do to another human being. Even before that, I was like, fuck this guy, because I just knew as soon as he walked up to Bix and started questioning her and then,
Mhm,
you know, tried to get at her, you know, offering a date, I knew the moment she said, I don't think my husband would like that, that this fragile imperial man would not be able to take that and not be able to take the rejection. And
mhm,
immediately he changes his demeanor. He's immediately talking about cheating, and thank God in that moment, Brasso comes in, and he obviously gets away because the thing he wants is Bix alone. We see what happens when he
Yeah.
finds Bix alone later
Yeah.
on. Fuck
Well,
that guy.
he literally wants to use his power over her. And the worst part about it is he's some low-ranking Imperial, but he's still looking down on her, one, because he's like, yeah, I know you're undocumented, and because she's a woman and
Right.
he's a man.
100%.
But it's just like it's so crazy because I literally had to do a harassment training just like at work today, just like general training that everybody has to do, but I literally did it today.
Right.
And so as he was like going up to her and was like, "Oh, you want to get dinner sometime with me?" And I was like, "Oh God, he's harassing her."
Yeah.
And then the whole like SA by the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
that was like so terrifying
Mm-hmm.
and disgusting.
Yeah.
And it just was, I'm like, Bix has been through so much.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
I need this girl to catch a break.
Yeah, because
She
I
doesn't
mean,
deserve any of this.
yes, exactly. And I want to give a huge shout out to Adria Arjona for her performance in these 3 episodes, but specifically the scene where he first walks up to her and finds her as she's finishing up a job. You can feel how timid she gets, when he's
Mhm.
nearby, and you just immediately think back to the trauma that she probably has, like the PTSD of even seeing an Imperial officer after everything she went through in the finale of
Yeah.
season 1.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, just when you go back and watch it, just you can feel it's very calculated within her performance. Like it's on
Mhm.
purpose that you can feel the fucking trauma coming off of her, and her being scared of him, even though in that moment all he's really doing is just talking to her, asking her
Yeah.
questions. But he's a man in an Imperial uniform, and someone like Bix who went through those things are obviously going to be terrified of that. So yeah, she
Well,
gave a incredible performance.
yeah. Well, in general, just a man coming up to a woman, a
Mhm.
strange man,
Yeah.
and she's alone.
Mhm.
Like, women have to go through so much.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit, and it sucks that everything happened at the end there, because before that, they had a whole plan to get out of there. They were going to go
Yeah.
to a far away place under the guise that there was an emergency job needed, and they were going to use that excuse if any Imperials stopped them. That way, when the Imperials came by and did their inspection, they wouldn't be there. They were too late. They already started seeing Imperial activity. And something interesting is that we see that TIE fighter fly by them. And I'm sure, just like me, your first thought was, oh, that's Cassian. But it's later
Yeah.
revealed that he was not even there yet. So that TIE fighter was not Cassian. I think that was kind of interesting, kind of a like, we're going to think it's Cassian, but then it's revealed it's not Cassian. I don't know. It was like a weird layers to that of like knowing and not knowing. I don't know.
Well, part of me wonders if that was because it was supposed to make us think it was Cassian,
Yeah.
and then the episode would end, and Tony Gilroy thought we'd have to wait another week for the story to pick up
Right.
for us to find out it wasn't him.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's just a little theory, but
Mhm.
I'm like, that was weird to throw that shot in there, and then we
Mhm.
never see a TIE fighter before that, and we never see one again until Cassian gets there. So
Yeah.
it was just a little odd. And maybe it was just to also show like, yeah, the Imperial presence
Mhm.
on Mina-Rau is like no joke.
Yeah,
So
100%. But
especially when they show up with those big guns and things, I'm like, what do y'all think you're
literally,
gonna run into?
literally, because these are fucking farmers. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what the fuck they thought they were going to run into.
You know what else too?
What?
And it's something I didn't think about until now.
Mhm.
We've we can already tell that of the time jump because there's a lot more stormtroopers now.
Yeah, that's very
Less
true.
uniformed, less of the like regular uniformed soldiers,
Mhm.
and we're seeing a lot more stormtrooper armor. And I didn't even think about that until now. That shot of the stormtroopers with like their blasters up
Mhm.
walking through the fields
Yeah.
takes me back to Rogue One.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it's a Rogue One trailer of stormtroopers or maybe it's just the imagery that they had in one of the posters, but I was
Mhm.
like, this feels like a callback to a Rogue One shot.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Rogue One, a lot of the way it's shot is like emphasizing the being on the ground. That was very much
Mm,
Gareth Edwards, filmmaking style. Like, think back to Godzilla. You have this giant, big ass creature in your movie, and he was very focused on like having the camera on a human level, like on the ground next to the humans. And
Yeah.
That's very much, Rogue One and now Andor as well. I feel like that's something that they brought over from him. So we're kind of seeing Gareth Edwards' blessing on Andor in a way. But yeah, they have this whole plan with this guy named Kellen, who I thought was really cool. I was like, oh, hell yeah, another legal citizen, helping out people supposedly using his privilege. But him and his wife don't really, or I don't know about him specifically, but his wife does not like the fact that their daughter is involved with Willman. And it's kind
Mhm.
of, I don't know. I kind of wonder what angle they were taking it at. As I feel like there's a lot of ways to look at it, but I almost feel like there may be a sense of they're fine and totally fine, like fighting against the racism or the xenophobia against the illegals, but when it comes to their personal lives, their own daughter, their pure daughter that's legal, oh, how dare an immigrant, an illegal immigrant,
Mm.
get involved with my pure daughter. And so in that moment when he leaves his bike out front, they have no problem selling them in that moment and being like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the
these guys are
mom in that
illegal.
moment,
Yeah. It was
she got real nasty for some reason. I was like,
yeah,
"Why are you coming on so hard on your daughter?"
literally.
And I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
They like, look down on yeah, they look down on women, so they're like, "Our daughter could not
Yeah.
date this guy who's not even from our planet. He's on
hmm
the run."
hmm
Like, oh, I didn't even think of that. That's so gross.
Yeah. And so like part of me thinks that Kellen, he was like genuinely wanting to help these people, but the second that it felt like
It
him and his family were in danger, he was immediately
Yeah, it
ready
got
to
too
sell them
real.
out. There were so many more excuses that he could have come up with for why that bike was in his yard other than, oh, my daughter's illegal boyfriend left that here, so
Well,
go after
I'm
them.
I'm pretty sure they also ran it was, like, not an outpost, like, maybe, like, a general store type thing,
Mhm,
so, like, maybe he just stopped by the store.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, you didn't need to do all that, but
Yeah, exactly. Because it seems like they were being fed. Then Brasso comes because he's looking for Willman because they're about to leave and finally make their escape, but it's all too late. Brasso gets caught, and that's when he's like, oh, that's one of those mechs from down the road, the illegal ones. And in that moment, it's confirmed that Kellen clearly told them because they look to Kellen and be like, these the illegal immigrants you're talking about, right? Yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. And it's even funny the foreshadowing of him saying, don't thank me yet, you know? Don't mind if I don't. We're not thinking that, fucker. Kellen, fuck you. And now to kind of conclude both the Cassian side of things and the Mina-Rau side of things, Cassian comes in, saves the day. We see that shot from the trailer where he blows up the transport, and with context added, that scene was just so much cooler. I don't know if he knew
yeah.
that they were specifically headed towards Bix and Willman, but still cool to see him blow up all their ships and totally cause chaos. But
Yeah, he doesn't care anymore.
yeah, not at
He
all.
literally sees an Imperial, goodbye.
Especially when it comes to saving the ones he loves. But
Well, and he knows the Imperials aren't gonna think twice about killing him.
yeah, 100%. But unfortunately, amidst all the chaos, and I've tried to go back and rewind and find the specific moment. I think they leave it out, but Brasso does not make it. He either gets gunned down by the stormtroopers, or what is could be even more heartbreaking, maybe one of the explosions that Cassian causes actually ends up being the thing that knocks Brasso out.
No, I don't like that.
I
That's
don't
more
like
sad.
it,
So
but it's but it's good storytelling.
I assumed it was, just one of the blaster bolts that
Yeah.
happened. Either they shot him or shot like,
Mhm.
the bike got hit and then
Yeah.
he crashed from it. Because it also kinda looked like the bike kinda fell on top of him,
Yeah.
um, which, oh god, that just makes me think of Nemec, like, what if it crushed his lungs or something? Oh, I don't wanna think about Brass's death anymore, I'm gonna cry again.
Yeah. Poor Brasso, RIP. He's such a good guy too, like, seeing all his
And
moments and
Well, and the fact that because we know like what death means to the people of Ferrix, and Cassian just having to leave Brasso's there with like no funeral, no,
Mhm. There
no
wasn't
stone
even
in sky,
right. There wasn't even
nothing.
time for Bix to go back and see him. Like they had to rush out. So,
I know when
goodbye.
they did the horrible where one character asks if the other character makes it, and the one character doesn't say anything. They just confirm with the no head
Yeah.
nod, and
Mhm.
it always feels like a gut punch because it's like they can't even put it into words because of how much shock it is. It's like no,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
It's sickening. But luckily, Brasso is the only one that passed away.
Well, well, we haven't seen Jessie, and she was on the ship when they left
I
Ferrix,
did think
so
about that. I was like, was she not available for
I
filming?
was
Did
gonna say
I
I guess
miss?
she wasn't the only one not available for season 2, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was like, did I
And then I
miss a
guess
line of dialogue or something where they explained it? But yeah, I was like, where's she at?
she left in the quad jumper and went somewhere else. That's what I'm gonna headcanon for her.
Or she
But
found a
also
little boyfriend somewhere farther away,
maybe,
living
yeah,
her
maybe
best life.
she's up in the city on the little mountain.
Mhm.
But also obviously he didn't die, but B2 gets left behind.
He
That was
did?
sad too. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was with them. Well, at least he's with
No.
Tally. Oh, that's right. You're right. Him and Tally went off. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Stepmom of the year, Tally.
And she okay, but I did kinda hate where she was like, "Don't worry, we'll forget about them," or some shit that she said to B, and I'm like, "You can't forget about them.
Yeah, but she's
They
just saying that
matter."
like we're gonna have so much fun that we don't even think about them.
I know. Well, I hope we see B2 again because if that was his end, like, I'm glad he, like, made it, and he
Yeah.
you know what? That probably was the end of B2 because they emphasized a lot of him having his little droid friends, playing around with the
Mm,
kids,
very true.
like,
Very true. But is
that
that
was
the
his, like, ride into the sunset, I guess.
yeah, but does that mean that this is the death of my B2 emo K2SO theory where um K2SO gets B2 emo's personality uploaded to him?
Well, I'm pretty sure Tony Gilroy confirmed at Celebration that we won't see K2 till, like, the 3rd arc, so
Yeah, but it could have who's to say B2 at that point in time? Who's to say B2 wasn't going to make it to the third arc, you know what I mean? So, but I guess the
we'll
theory might
see.
be dead. Oh well. But moving on, I think we should move into the Imperial side of things next with Dedra and Syril. But starting off with Dedra
Ugh.
and Major Partagaz. Such a weird name, such a funny name. Major
Oh
Partagaz.
my I know, I always think of all the people online that call him, like, Fartigaz because I couldn't remember his name while I was writing my notes, and I was like, "Fuck, what's that guy's name?" It's something silly,
Yeah.
and then I was like, "Oh, yeah, Partigaz,"
hmm But we get the return of Director Krennic and Ben
which I know you
Mendelsohn.
loved.
Yes, and Ben Mendelsohn is a fucking phenomenal actor. Holy fuck. He's great.
Yeah, I did forget how good he is, and he described in one of the behind the scenes interviews saying that Director Krennic is fruitier.
hmm
Ben Mendelsohn's words, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, the camp
Yeah. Yeah.
is on full display."
100%.
Down to the I'm gonna show this little fucking travel ad.
Yeah.
Like he's just being so ridiculous. And once again, this is how we're creeping the humor
hmm
into Andor, which I love.
Yeah.
Didn't think I'd
100%.
love it, but so far I'm just like, this is so funny. And
Yeah.
it just shows how pompous and like full of themselves the Imperials are,
hmm
especially the way, like in the whole meeting, he's like, I spoke with the Emperor
hmm
and we've handpicked y'all.
Yeah.
And he's very excited about this. And if you have issues or you let somebody know, you will speak to the Emperor yourself.
Yeah.
You're better than all your colleagues. You cannot talk to them about this meeting.
hmm
Like,
Yeah.
it's so ridiculous.
He put on a full display. It was like yeah, like you said, very camp. But yeah, they had a secret meeting. Director Krennic brought Dedra, Major Partagaz, and all these other high end Imperials to come together for this secret job that nobody knows about, but him and Emperor Palpatine. And like you
Mhm.
said, even their supervisors are not meant to known. And I think that that's going to come up in a smaller scale relationship that we're seeing, but I'll talk about that later when we get to them, which is also in this section. But Krennic he basically says he promised to deliver the Death Star within 3 years, but for that to happen,
Mhm.
he needs a mineral called calcite to coat the
Mhm.
reactor lenses. A bunch of Star
I
Wars
know
mumbo jumbo.
as soon as I heard the word reactor
hmm
and remember that's like what they have to blow up
Yep.
in A New Hope. I was like, reactor, oh my god, they're talking about the Death Star, but they're
Mhm.
keeping it like here's another secret part of the Death Star. Like they were building secret parts on Narkina 5, and we
Mhm.
found out that was like to stabilize beams or some shit.
Mhm.
Krennic's working on this other part that's going to help stabilize reactors or
Mhm.
whatever and have energy, and it's all under this guise of a Emperor's energy program. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
you ain't talking about this energy
No
program is
energy.
as real as Mon Mothma's Chandrilla outreach program.
Yeah, 100%. And clearly the Calkite did not do a good job at protecting the reactor lenses because they blew it the fuck up in A New Hope. But it's
Well, that's what
interesting.
happens when you're on a time crunch and you don't give the people working on projects behind the scenes enough time to complete it.
Yeah.
Am I talking about a parallel about CGI and special
Maybe.
effects? Maybe.
Maybe, but basically he's saying that they're hoping to find alternatives to this mineral that's found deep within the core of Ghorman, but from the sounds of it, it doesn't sound like he's going to try very hard to find alternatives, and they will need to actually go to Ghorman. He says that if they don't find an alternative, they will have to, I have the exact wording. He says that they will need to have a firm grasp on the people of Ghorman to silence any type of resistance or pushback,
Mm,
which the Ghorman people are known for. Um,
yeah.
and
I wouldn't even necessarily say it's pushback. At least the way I understood it was that the Gorman people are like, we're doing our own thing. Our
Mhm,
planet's great.
mhm,
Don't mess up what we have going on
mhm,
because like we're the center for, I mean, basically fabric and like a little bit of the high life. It's kind of like a fashion
mhm,
type thing going on. Maybe it gave me like maybe kind of a French vibe, but
mhm,
also a weird like 1950s retro futuristic. I don't know.
mhm.
I liked it.
Yeah, 100%. But I still would use the word pushback. They do push back against imperial activity. The story supposedly is that they killed one of the imperial inspectors because they had to shut down the shipping
Mm,
lanes so that there would be an inspection. And the story is that because of Gorman, their egos, they needed to
there
kill
we
the
go.
guy
It's their
and
ego.
yeah, and stop what was happening. But he introduces these guys, Director Krennic introduces these guys by the name of D. Shambo and Nisus Osar, who claim to control the public opinion of Gorman. So
And they're
basically,
the worst people in the world.
absolutely, absolutely. And they literally bring up the story of the Imperial shipping lane needing shut down. The Gorman people retaliated and supposedly killed an inspector. I don't think so, because they say the line when after he says that, he says we did that. And so I almost think that like him or his team or whoever actually were the ones that killed the inspector. And then what
And then
they
blamed it
did,
on
yeah,
a group.
blamed them on the Gormans and then blew up the story, shared it within the media. They say that if you plant the correct seeds in the correct order in the correct media outlets, you will eventually sway the public opinion. And that's another
Oh my
thing
gosh.
that happens in the real fucking world. We see it all the time. I mean, think about like back in 2003, Fox News and CNN, they repeated over and over that Iraq had ties to terrorism because post 9/11.
And
Yeah.
weapons of mass destruction.
Yep, exactly.
That was a hot phrase.
Yeah,
Ugh.
exactly, saying that, they're connected to terrorism, and that justifies the fact that they invaded Iraq post 9/11. And the media here in the US was painting the people of Iraq and Iraq as a country as this horrible place. And so a lot of the citizens in America were like, "Oh yeah, fuck those guys." Like, what of course you're going to ruin their entire lives and blow up their country. But I mean, we even saw this during like the civil rights protests during the 50s and the 60s. So many like newspapers, political figures, they portrayed the civil rights protesters as agitators, communists, or just like an overall threat. And that
Yeah.
swayed a lot of people's opinions to be like, yeah, fuck those guys. Or think back to even Nazi Germany. I mean, there was someone by the name of Joseph Goebbels. He was a minister of propaganda. He orchestrated a massive media campaign that portrayed the Jews as corrupt, subhuman, and just responsible for the problems in Germany, was able to sway the public opinion. And we're seeing that now. Think about the way that transgender people are thrown under the bus, or woke people, basically anybody who's not a white male. Basically, there's an entire party that just won the fucking election saying that woke people are responsible for the issues in our country, which couldn't be farther from the truth. And there's so many actual ways to deal with the problems of our country without throwing minorities and marginalized people under the bus. But that's what they do, and that's what they're doing in Andor. Fuck the Empire.
Well, and I mean, even talking about Tony Gilroy saying that history always repeats itself, and talking about, back during 2001 and 9/11, and saying that all the people of Iraq are all terrorists, we're seeing the same thing right now with Palestine.
Oh yeah,
It's the
100%.
same thing repeating itself.
Mm-hmm.
And yet people don't see it for what it is because of the way the media chooses to portray it.
Yep.
I mean, we even see it with Donald Trump not allowing certain news
Yep.
publications in the White House.
Yep.
Or we're seeing it with people like Elon Musk
Mm-hmm.
taking away features of just verifying if things are real or not on a social media
Yeah.
app, or removing people that he disagrees with.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget when he was like, cis is a slur.
Yep.
So I'm going to block you from my website if you say I'm cis.
Right, 100%. Or even buying the fucking website in the first place and making it a right-wing echo chamber where
Yeah.
literally on the day of the election, the front fucking page for every single Twitter user was an advertisement to vote for Donald Trump.
Oh, and it's just all Trump ads all the time anyway. I
Literally.
go through and I say like irrelevant.
Yep.
They make me so angry.
Yeah.
But don't want to get too far into the real world because we
Right.
still need to
But
bring
it's
back to Andor.
right, but it's
But
what
yeah,
we're seeing in Andor. We're seeing that
it's
play
the
out with these two
parallels.
guys. They're the media
Once again.
controllers. Mm-hmm.
And once again, if people see this and don't make the connection,
Mm-hmm. Yup.
what do you got some thinking to do.
100%. And I
watch it a few more times.
right. And I don't even, all the Imperials like somewhat question it, but they all are on board by the end of it, except Dedra. We know that she doesn't want to be part of the project, but it's not because she thinks it's fucked up necessarily. Like that's the thing is the Empire has brainwashed these Imperials so bad that they're literally
Mhm.
sitting here being told, yeah, we might go, first of all, steal their minerals, their natural minerals that we do not own, and we need it for our planet killer project. And at the same time, it could make the planet unstable, even implode.
Or just destroy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
implode the entire fucking planet at its core. But it's needed because the reactor lenses need coated. So
For the Emperor's energy program that's going to help the galaxy.
insanity. And
Talk about propaganda. It's
right. And this is just one corner of this giant Death Star project because we already know of the fact that, they've destroyed entire planets, entire systems. Think of Ilum trying to mine kyber
literally.
crystals to the point where Ilum was, so mined and so hollow by the time they finished that the First Order turned it into their own Death Star,
Mhm.
like it's insane. And it's just crazy to think that this is just one small corner of the bullshit the Empire brings on to the galaxy. It's gross.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Well, talking about gross and disgusting things.
Yeah.
Great segue into our new favorite couple, Syril and Dedra. Do they have a ship name yet? Syrildra?
Oof.
Dedril?
Yeah. I don't think anyone had one prepared because I think it was a little unexpected. Well, it's not unexpected, but I didn't imagine that the next time we would see these two characters was in the apartment that they shared together.
Living together, like putting off dinner with Cyril's mom.
Yeah.
It's just, oh my god. And in general, like just where we find them, even Cyril's introduction, he's such a fucking loser. Now he's risen the ranks in his call center job, which I can say that because I've worked in plenty. And he's like, what is the quote? I wrote it down. He says, "There is a future here for those who dare." I'm like,
oh my god.
please shut the fuck up. You're such a fucking loser. And honestly, I'm just like, and you're dating an ISB officer,
Right.
like, you fucking suck.
Yeah. He's a fucking dweeb and it's hilarious, but their dynamic in their relationship, I can't lie, as weird as it is, it's one of the most intriguing things for me for this season to see where it goes. I think it's so interesting, not just seeing their dynamic. I mean, think of Dedra standing up to Edie, Cyril's mom,
Yeah.
who I think everybody is scared of or just like scared to
Oh,
stand up to. And
no, I'm the Dedra in that situation
oh,
because I would have
really?
been like, "We're not doing." Yes, we're
Mm.
not doing this shit. That's childish. You
Yeah,
treat your
but
son like shit. That's me. So I guess if you have an overbearing parent, I'm
well, that's the
single.
thing, I guess, when it comes to parents and things like that, it's just scary to be like, this is not how you're going to treat your own child. But um,
But she knows that Cyril is locked in. Cyril is not gonna leave her.
yeah, 100%.
So
Because what
she
other
knows he's locked in, it doesn't matter.
right, what other avenue does he have? But that stuff's interesting to me. But think about the fact that one, Dedra and Cyril. With Dedra, she has like such a front. I feel like she wants to seem very strong, authoritative. She wants to be a big boss in the empire,
Yeah.
basically. Um,
An HBIC.
And so she's not going to let anybody see her be vulnerable. But when Cyril
Yeah.
saved her in season one, he's kind of like the only character that has seen her in her vulnerable
Mhm.
state. And now they're fucking. So now he's really seen her be vulnerable. And he's probably the only character still that's seen her be vulnerable. So that relationship dynamic there is very interesting. But what happens when this secret project that she can't tell Cyril about starts to come into play? It's very clearly going to drive a wedge into their relationship here. Or even worse, Cyril is going to do what he does best and try to take matters into his own hands. And what if that
Mhm.
is what happens with Ghorman? Cyril makes
I was
a
gonna say,
fucking crazy mistake and it leads to the Ghorman people being fucking massacred. And now everything Dedra was trusted with and was told to take charge of is just in shambles because good old Cyril does what he does best and tries to take matters into his own fucking hands.
I mean, I honestly could see a situation where she uses Cyril for exactly that
Mhm.
because she wants to play this mastermind and
Mhm.
she wants to be in control. And I could see her using him because she sees from Edie how Cyril reacts to her and how Cyril
Mhm.
submits to her
Yeah.
because of his mommy issues.
Mhm.
And Dedra has control issues and OCD,
Mhm.
and she's also a fascist
Yeah.
and doesn't care about anything but herself and like climbing up the food chain.
Mhm.
So I could see her using Cyril in the end in some certain way, and whether he dies or she loses him from that, I feel like that's just a sacrifice that she would make depending on if it got her to whatever goal. I mean, we see it when she's still like, I have to find Axis, and Major Partagas is like, Axis, you've
Right.
been doing that for 2 years. We don't care anymore.
Right.
Nothing came from it. Like he's so over it, but she's still like on the hunt essentially. Like that's what she wants to focus on. She doesn't even want this amazing opportunity, as Major Partagas puts it, from Director Krennic to like head this program.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like she came up with the idea on how to resolve it, and Krennic's like, I handpicked you.
Mhm.
And even after, your Ferrix debacle, like
Yeah.
you clearly show resilience.
Yeah. So
It's gonna be weird to see how they play out for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, especially Dedra. She's one of the most interesting characters for me. I've thought that since season one, when they frame it in a way where you're kind of rooting for her and you're kind of rooting to see her climb that ladder in the Empire, and then you realize, oh my god, I'm rooting for the fucking fascists to climb the
Well,
fascist ladder.
I feel like it's kind of happening again. I've already seen people online, like just in the little bit I've like scrolled through my feed, being like, fuck Dedra, but watching her tell off Edie was so satisfying. And I think that's on purpose
Yeah.
because it's going to be a same situation where we're rooting for her. She doesn't necessarily want to do the horrible Ghorman plan that
Hmm.
we know is horrible. We just talked about it, you and I, and
Yeah.
everybody else. Like, but she's like, I don't want to focus on that. And we're like, yes, don't focus on that because that's bad.
Yeah.
And she also tells off her boyfriend's horrible mother. And we're like, yes, because his mother fucking sucks.
Yeah. Literally.
But yeah, eventually, like I said, there's going to be some turning point
Hmm.
once again. And we're going to be reminded why Dedra fucking sucks.
Yes, exactly. And like Denise Goff said at Star Wars Celebration this past weekend,
it wasn't so girl boss. It was much more fascist.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how it all plays out. I mean, all of this is interesting because we have the knowledge of Ghorman, at least the fact that there is a Ghorman massacre. So we know that this all eventually is going to lead into something even bigger. So it's fun to theorize where it could all
Yeah.
go.
And they've even talked about, I think Tony Gilroy specifically, that it's not necessarily going to be a massacre in the way that we think.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm very interested to see what actually happens. I loved the world building for Ghorman too, with that cheesy ad. Like,
Yeah.
once again, it was so camp, but like learning about the spiders, they like make all this clothing. It's very hoity-toity and fashionable. Like,
And
I'm excited to see what happens, but also terrified.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think that means it's time to move into something I'm interested and excited to discuss with you as the, Mon Mothma's number one defender, Mon Mothma's number one fan.
I was gonna say defend her. You don't need to defend her. She's mother.
Yeah,
She's making it happen.
exactly. Very
Talk about a
true.
girl boss.
Yeah, the drama of it all with Leida's wedding and Tay, and there's divorces involved and marriages.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You have a marriage coming together with Leida and what's her boyfriend's name? I wrote it down.
Oh,
Because it's never said in the
Scatten or
show. Yeah,
something.
Scatton. It's rarely said in the show.
Is that actually what it is?
Yes. Wait, I have it. It sounds right. Stecken is his name.
Stecken.
Yeah.
I was like,
Close
yeah,
enough.
I said well, scat is one thing, Skekton is another.
Yeah, very true. But just the drama from the beginning when Luthen Rail shows up and you see Mon
Oh
Mothma
my god.
frantically, moving towards him, and she runs into Vel and she's like, "Do you see who's here? What the fuck is this guy doing here?" I was like, "Oh god, the drama. I'm ready for it."
Yeah, I obviously this wedding subplot was my favorite part of this first arc, and we knew it was going to be Leida's wedding, like the ceremony itself, the Chandrillan 3-day event or however long it was.
Yeah.
One, we got to see Chandrilla on screen finally.
Yeah.
I thought it looked super cool.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I thought the sets looked great. The lore,
Yeah.
and then, like you said, the drama of it all. I kind of had theorized that Luthen was going to be on Chandrilla, but I didn't really know why.
Right.
And then we find out he's bringing this gift because he knows Davos Skolden.
Yeah. Weird.
And this is the drama. See, the wedding to me, I've always kind of talked about how Disney needs like a HBO has Game of Thrones, Disney needs their Game of Thrones show. This whole wedding felt very Game of Thrones with all the interconnectivity and all the secrets, but like putting on a front. And I could talk about it from a general standpoint probably way longer. I could probably spend a whole episode talking about just this.
Yeah, 100%. And part of me kind of mourns the version of Andor where it was 5 seasons and we might have had a whole arc dedicated to just the wedding. But this was still this was still very, very good. And yeah, you talked about them putting up fronts. The acting there between Genevieve O'Reilly and Stellan Skarsgård, and I wish I knew Tay Colma's actor's name, but they all did good.
I don't either.
And Davos Golden as well, like their actors putting on this front. I think I talked about this maybe at like Celebration last weekend, where we're seeing all these characters put on a front for each other, and like it clashes with the other fronts. And you can also tell by their acting, like it's an intentional choice that they're kind of acting a bit off to really show that they're putting on an act. There's just things like Luthen and Mon like will stare at each other for a second too long or something like that you can just you feel the tension there. I loved it all. And Take Homa, the star of the whole Leida's wedding, the crash out of them all.
That man pissed me off so hard because at first I was like, oh, he's flirting with Mon now, and she's not necessarily the one flirting with him. Like in season 1, they kind of flip-flopped.
He's newly single, which is interesting.
Yes. and I was like, "Oh my god, are they finally gonna have their moment?"
Mhm. Or even if they don't have a moment, I think that this starts to plant the idea in Mon Mothma's head that, like, because, Takoma, he's also from Chandrilla, correct? And
Mhm.
so he also had the same type of wedding, the what's it called when they're put together?
Arranged
Arranged
marriage.
marriage. Yes, he had the same arranged marriage that Mon Mothma had, and it's kind of like a realization for her, like, oh, maybe I'm not stuck in this marriage forever. I don't know. Maybe that was something in the back of her mind. It like plants the seeds a little bit.
Well, we've learned, at least in The Mask of Fear,
Hmm.
from the Reign of the Empire series, that Mon and Perrin's relationship has waxed and waned,
Yeah.
and they got to a point where, like, they don't ask questions, essentially.
Hmm.
So I took that as kind of the opportunity, if they did want to go and have a fling or something,
Hmm.
whether that be just an intimate setting, whether it's a full-on, like, physical thing, whatever.
Right.
That's kind of the way that I took it. And Perrin even made comments to Mon about
Her
this.
boyfriend.
I know, and he seemed kinda jealous, which I thought was
Yeah.
very interesting too,
Mhm.
which I also thought, like, the wedding, them planning it together for their daughter, I thought maybe that would have brought them closer,
Mhm.
and I think it might have a little bit
Maybe on
less
his side of
strain of.
things, not
Yeah,
like, for Mon Mothma,
yeah,
I feel
like,
like no, but, like, think about his speech and things like that, like, there's moments where he's, like,
yes,
looking at Mon Mothma and, like,
yeah.
"My lovely
There
wife, my
the
Shayla."
eye the eye contact was hard there,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, I think you're right, come to think of it, that maybe with Perrin,
Mhm.
he's kinda reflecting back on that, and what does he say? He says that, uh, he was always weak, and, like,
Mm.
Mon shoots Perrin daggers
Yeah.
after he says that maybe Tay is weak,
Mhm.
but Mon's in this really weird predicament throughout this whole sequence, with Tay acting out, Luthen noticing it,
Mhm.
Mon kind of avoiding Tay because she just doesn't have time to
Yeah.
focus on what he's trying to essentially just get her attention,
Right.
at first. And then it turns into this plot where Luthen's like, I think that you need to check him because this is getting a little it's getting a little sketchy.
Yeah.
He's spending a lot of time with Davos Golden. He's getting super drunk.
Mhm.
Like, we don't really know what he wants, and what it comes down to is we don't know what he wants in return, to the point where
Yes.
then Tay has to confront Mon
Yeah.
and is like, "You're good. I got all your stuff squared away, but, like, what am I getting out of this?"
Yeah.
And what did you think about that conversation? Because I'm kind of torn on what I think he meant.
So for me, first of all, I think he's valid in the way he feels because if you think about it, he's taken the big risks here, probably the biggest risks. He's talked about his investments have gone sour, things like that. Now
Mhm.
now his wedding or his marriage has gone to shit. We don't know if that's necessarily connected to his activity here, but it's
No, but it's
possible.
still
Yeah.
gonna dampen this mood.
Exactly, 100%. And with him taking the biggest risks here, Mon Mothma got what she wanted, her foundation, all her, blemishes with her money. It's all smoothed over. Davos Golden, his shitty son is married off to Leida now. As they portray him, he's like irresponsible, childlike. But what
Yeah.
did Tay make out with? What does he have? But I also think based on the conversations that the I think it was the last conversation that Tay and Mon Mothma have, I think the Empire is on his ass at this point. And I think that he's
Mm.
trying really hard to tell Mon Mothma this, but she's putting it off to, oh, we'll talk next week. But if you remember, he specifically says that he needs that he could really use Davos' help right now. What does he need his help with if it's not like, you know he also needs something covered up or something like that, or they're already on his ass. And I think that is why he's, I don't think Tay specifically mentions he needs something in return. Like that's what Luthen and Mon Mothma kept talking about, unless I'm incorrect, but I don't
Mhm.
remember him saying the exact words like I need this or I have my number in mind. They kept mentioning this number,
Yeah,
and
mhm.
I'm like, "What's the
So
number?" And Luthen even says, "I think you know what his number is." And I'm like, "What is the number? Are they saying Is he saying Mon Mothma needs to sleep with Tay because he's lonely and that's his number, or what is the number? What is the thing? That's what I was confused about.
So the way that I took it was from the first kind of awkward altercation, and I think this was in day 2 of the wedding. I think this was like I guess what I would refer to as like the rehearsal dinner, essentially.
Yeah.
I was worried it was turning into like I need sexual favors,
Yeah.
or like I need your physical attention. And the way that Mom like looks so uncomfortable, but like is also like, yes, like I understand exactly what you mean, and we will figure that out. Because Perrin also kind of gives her the, well, you want to go be with your boyfriend? Fine, go do your thing. And she's like, no, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was that, and I was like, don't give this woman more stress. First, she's got to put her daughter on the line.
Yeah.
Then she's got to deal with all this banking stuff to fund the rebellion. Now she's going to have to sleep with you, or else he's going to blackmail you.
Right.
Which that's where I was a little worried it was going. I was like, not Tay taking the heel turn. I'm not
Yeah.
liking this. I don't know. It just, I don't really know what he wanted, and I don't know if we're ever going to get to find out.
Yeah. See, that's something that, and we'll go back to Leida's wedding. But that's something that I've thought about with the whole year gap thing. I think that's one of the downsides to this is, like, for example, Mon Mothma mentions that meeting that will happen in a week. We won't see that meeting because the next time we see these characters, a year will have passed.
That's true. Even if Tay does survive, we won't see
Exactly.
the meeting.
So that's something that I'm like, I wonder how they're going to handle that. Will it just be like a line of exposition? Will Mon Mothma be like, oh yeah, that time that I shot Tay Kolma in the forehead?
You don't think Cinta's gonna literally kill him in the car?
I did think of that too. See, that's something else. Like, Cinta is there, so clearly Luthen Rail set up whoever's going to pick him up. So
Yeah.
but do you
Because
think
Luthen.
kill him? Like, I don't.
Well, okay. So going back to what you had said about them trying to figure out a number,
Is that the number?
The way that I took Luthen's explanation was that they were going to have to now pay off Tay.
Yeah.
And that would put them in so much debt that they wouldn't even be able to fund the rebellion that they've started, because they've already put so much money into that. So the debt that they have with Tay, they could never recover from. I thought
That makes
Luthen came from
sense.
it monetarily. I think that Mon came at it maybe in a, like I said, more of like a physical payment.
Yeah.
And then maybe Tay was talking in a way like you said. So I think maybe all of our characters are kind of
Coming at it.
they're not communicating.
Yeah.
They're not communicating, so they don't really know what each other wants, and they don't have the time to.
Yeah.
So that's why everything's so tense and stressful.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Mon Mothma does, like, or she at least understands that that's what Luthen means, a number, because she mentions, like, Tay comes here, he sees this big ass wedding, he sees all this money that's being spent, and that's something that I kept thinking about. I'm like, oh my gosh, like the jumping back and forth from like these rebels that need to collect
In the mud.
rainwater, to have drinking water, and then cutting to this giant fucking wedding where there's a robot DJ sphere thing in the air playing a new version of the Niamos track. I'm sure you
we're gonna
loved
get
that.
into that. Yeah, trust me, I have words for it. The biggest thing I'm worried about with Tay's potential end is that how is Mon going to take it? Because she knows Luthen is hinting at they need to kill him. Like, he's a loose thread. We can't have him out. That's what Luthen was going to do to Cassian.
Right.
And Mon knows how quick Luthen is to act without necessarily thinking of long term. So I'm scared to see what that fallout looks like. Because I think he's going to die.
Yeah.
I think he's getting killed by Cinta.
Like, yeah, just immediately on the way there. Yeah, because I mean, like,
And I
where else could she be taking him? You know what I mean?
I don't know, prison.
Yeah.
Like some kind of holdout somewhere. Yeah, I'm just like, I think that's what Mon's biggest issue is she is too scared to act, and that's why she's like, we're going to do the meeting, because she has that emotional connection to, which is why I think it makes everything so complicated.
Yeah, it's so fucking complicated and weird, and we're not even mentioning where Leida and the actual wedding comes into play with this, because
she pissed me off.
Well, because like we see that moment where Mon Mothma has to comfort Leida because they got in their first argument. Leida says, he's a child, he won't even hold my hand, he's ignoring me, things like that. And in that moment, I'm thinking, ooh, this is going to get interesting, because does that mean Leida is going to want to call the wedding off, but Mon Mothma can't, because she knows that, if they don't go through with the wedding, then Davos part of the, deal isn't upheld. And is she
Mhm.
going to have to force Leida to marry this guy that she didn't even want her to marry to begin with? So then I was kind of taken aback when later on Mon Mothma is the one that tells Leida, you can call this off. It's all bullshit anyways, and they'll actually look at you as being brave, for going out there and saying, I'm not ready, I'm not mature enough. I don't know, where was your mind at in these moments?
So I will say the Mon trying to comfort Lita about the hand holding was a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that's because of their strained relationship. They
Mhm.
don't really have that emotional bond
Right,
because of how apart they are, and
right.
as we saw in the first season. So then when Mon finally does have that moment with Lita before the wedding, that's when I really thought like it was going to crack, they were finally going to come together.
Mhm.
And I love that Mon took that time, which yes, she's biased, obviously we know she doesn't want her daughter to get married at 15 years old.
Right.
And she knows, like she already saw, here's a glimpse of their first argument, he won't even hold Lita's hand.
Mhm.
Like this is going to be the rest of your life an unfulfilling marriage possibly,
Yeah.
so don't really want to set you up for that. And we know she feels bad, but I think in that moment she truly acts as Lita's mother.
Mhm.
She's not Mon Mothma the senator, she's not a politician, she's not like, she's just, Lita is her daughter, she is her mother.
Mhm.
And she's like, I'm going to tell you the one thing that I wish my mom would have told me. It was just like, you don't have to go through this if you don't want to.
Right.
And I thought there was going to be a moment, and then fucking Leida says, I wish you were drunk.
Yeah.
And I was like, you are the absolute worst.
Yeah.
I can't stand her. I wasn't having any issues with her the whole time. I was like, wow, seems like all the family's getting close, everybody's doing good.
Mhm.
And then of course, Leida has to resort back to this cold, nasty relationship with her mom. And I feel like Mom was trying the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and who paid for the wedding? Not Lita, not her
Yeah.
husband. They ain't got no money. They don't have no jobs.
Yeah, the thing is with Lita, I always try to give her the benefit of the doubt, or,
I know.
sympathize with her. She doesn't know why her mom is absent a lot, or, she doesn't understand why her and her mom don't get to have this relationship that I think she does have with her father. Like when you see Perrin giving that speech, you see she's very smiles and giggly and like, "Oh, I love my dad." And we see that in season 1 as well, where like she almost pits Perrin and Mon against each other, or like, who's the better parent? Oh, dad's gonna take me to school today.
I mean,
You don't have
that's
to.
that's typical. What
Yeah.
is typical with parents who are divorced, which essentially Mon and
Yeah.
Perrin ain't really a loving couple. So
Yeah. Yeah. Or not even like parents that are divorced, but like parents that, you ever see those parents that my parents did this, trying to stay together because they're like, oh,
for
the
the kids,
kids, yeah, the kids, when they turn
yeah,
18 will,
yeah,
God. So yeah, I could see some of that coming into play. And also, she's young. Like there's that scene where she's messing around, or she's showing her friends her dress and they're all giggling and laughing, and I'm like, these girls should be having slumber parties. Okay, they should
yeah, and
not
like,
be at a wedding. And
yeah.
she's not even 15, she's 13, or I guess
Oh,
14 now at this point. But in Andor season 1,
oh,
I remember Davos says, he's like,
oh,
well, your
she's
daughter's
13.
13.
She'll soon come
Yeah,
of age.
exactly. So
Ugh.
yeah, but at the same time, no, I totally get it. Like I totally get, you know it's hard, especially knowing all the context of everything, seeing Lita, act this way. But I guess I'm just confused, because I definitely understand where you're coming from, where you're like, I feel like she was being Lita's mom in that moment. I could see that for the first one, but for some reason I feel like it's all connected, where Tay tells her, oh, everybody got this deal, or everybody got their end of the deal. Where's mine? And I was like, almost, is she, just saying, fuck it. And Davos not going to get his end of things. So actually don't go and marry him.
Well,
But
but that's kind of like what you talked about before, where you were like, oh, is she actually going to allow Leida to risk this operation? Because it's
mhm,
essentially a business transaction. From
exactly.
like, is she actually willing to risk that? And I
Mhm.
feel like she was in that moment, which is why she was so intensely giving Leida the choice.
That makes sense. Cause then that's kind of like, they even put emphasis, like when she cuts the braid, like that's official, it's happening, and everything. I actually do like the framing of that's like Mon Mothma was like, okay, I will be a mom, and I will be this, and I'm just gonna, screw the rebellion, or whatever I have going on. I'll be present for my daughter. And then when Leida shuts her down, like that's it. That's the moment, and that's Mon Mothma is not a family woman going forward. And we don't really get to know where Mon Mothma's head is after that, besides seeing her get really drunk and dance like a
Yeah.
fucking maniac.
I mean, I have been there though. When
Yeah.
you drink a little too much, the drinks start hitting, and
Uh-huh.
then you're just like, "Oh my god, I'm just in a whirl right now." That was my early 20s. Um, yeah, that was just insane seeing Mon Mothma, 'cause Andor's always made a point to show Mon will walk around with a drink. She never drinks
Mhm.
it, except for,
Yeah.
like, the one drink we see her have with the little, Sigrona Tima
Uh-huh.
toast
Yeah.
in Andor season 1.
Mm.
Like, that's the only time we ever see her drink something, but, like, every time we've else seen her, like, at a function, she holds a drink, talks to people, hands it off to somebody else, and we saw her do that earlier in the episode. So I'm like, not only does she not ever really drink, but she
Mhm.
is throwing back shots,
Yeah.
and they
After
make it a
shot after
point
shot after shot.
and they make it a point in this episode to talk about how, like, you have to pace yourself through a Chandrillan wedding because, like, it's essentially just a weekend of drinking, 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 which honestly is kind of like any wedding.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, not her being in this horrible headspace. And it was just essentially everything boiled over. And
Mhm.
then Davos Skolden's wife, she has 3 glasses of wine, she's shit-faced, and then she falls asleep. That's the vibe I was getting from her. And she's like, "Mon, come on." And Mon,
Yeah.
she thinks about it for a sec. And then she's like, at this point, I'm stressed as fuck with Luthen. I'm stressed
Mhm.
as fuck with Tay. I'm not happy about this wedding happening. I'm actually completely against it.
Mhm.
And oh, my
Yeah.
relationship also sucks.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm so interested to see where that all goes, but it's
Me too.
definitely the one arc that I'm just worried about with the whole year gap. The other arcs, like, I feel like it'll be fine. Like we'll see a year from now where Bix and Willman are, and that'll be fine. That'll be resolved, of like, oh, this is where they went.
Yeah.
We'll see the Ghorman project get further. Maybe in that year they realize, okay, we're not going to be able to get any synthetic calcite, so we
Calcite.
have to go to Ghorman and actually follow through with this operation. But this arc is going to be really hard, I feel like, to continue a year later, especially when they're already making reference to things that happen in a week.
Hmm.
You have
Yeah.
like idea where maybe they would pick it up in a year that would make it all feel like a complete story still, or what are your thoughts?
I almost feel like they have to have some family drama. Like we're back on Coruscant and there's some drama between Mon and Perrin and Lita. Or
Mm,
I feel like it has to kind of relate to that. And then we see a break off. Maybe
right.
that could be, when Mon finally leaves her family, because we know something has to happen to them. Or maybe they can leave her and they say, we're going back to Chandrilla. Fuck you. You don't
Right.
give a shit about us. Stay on Coruscant and do your senator shit. That would be extra heartbreaking, but now that I say it out loud, I am kind of worried that might be the case, because
Yeah.
I could totally see Lita and whatever her husband's name is, they don't have
Mhm.
jobs, they don't have money, so they can go live at the Mothma estate on
Right.
Chandrilla, and I could see Perrin being like, "Well, somebody has to be there because even though they're married, they're still children, so
Mhm.
they need an adult."
Yeah.
Oh, I really hope that doesn't happen though, because I'll, like, feel really my heart will break for Mon Mothma, even though She's not going to be happier with them there, but it's more of just like that ties are completely cut. That's
Right.
how I could see it kind of happening. And then that's what kind of radicalizes Mon. Because
Yeah.
even Tay makes some remarks about how Mon like needs to speak out and say something and do something. She's so
Right.
calculated, but she hasn't really played her moves yet. She's all
Right.
behind the scenes. So that's what I
Yeah.
think. Do you have an idea?
I don't know. I really like the idea that you brought up of Luthen ordering Tay to be killed. Like, I don't know why I didn't even. I knew when Cinta picked him up that there was something
It wasn't going to be
calculated
good.
going on. Yeah, but I didn't go as far to say that she would kill him. But it makes sense that even in that year, even if it's not in that moment, that Luthen would order for him to be killed because, like you said, he's a loose end. And how
Mhm.
would Mon Mothma react to that? And there
Well,
has to be a wedge driven between them, I think, because we know that the progression of these characters, Mon Mothma is eventually the leader of the rebellion. Luthen
and
Rail seems
Luthen
to
ain't
be
there.
very much the leader. But yeah, like you said, he ain't in A New Hope. He ain't in
Well,
Rogue One.
and
So
Luthen knows because of Mon's like emotions towards Tay and their history. She even says
mhm,
to Tay like Tay is her oldest friend.
yeah,
Like she's not gonna do what needs to be done, whereas
mm,
Luthen will, and Luthen probably feels like he has to make that move because he know Mon won't.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna be rough.
It's
It's
gonna
gonna
be
be
real
sad.
rough.
I don't
Yeah,
want to see the funeral.
I know. Ugh. Every this show, like I said at the start, it makes you feel every emotion. It fucking punches you back and forth, and then awards you for sticking around through all the mud.
Yeah.
And I love it so much. I'm so excited to see where it goes.
Before we finish, I have some special shout outs,
Yes.
or
Okay.
Easter eggs, I should say.
Hmm.
Erskine, Mon's assistant from Rebels, is in live action. So
Oh,
add him to your animated character to live action pipeline.
I didn't even. I didn't
Yeah,
even consider. I
that's
didn't even
because
think of it.
I only know from when I was rewatching those Rebels episodes, and I was like, Erskine, what the fuck kind of name is that? So
Right.
Erskine's now made the jump from animation to live action. We get another shout out of the Rakatan Invaders, the second one in the Andor series, which I thought was really interesting. The Kawadi Signet,
Mhm.
the Kyber necklace that he gives uh I almost said Diego Luna, Cassian in season 1. That was a Rakatan Invader thing. Now we've got this Shandy Merle from some Chandrilla
Mm,
ancient temple that was stolen or something from the Rakatan Invaders. I'm like, I really
interesting.
love these Rakata civilization references in Andor of all things. And
Right.
then, this isn't even, I guess you could consider this an Easter egg. The Niamos like wedding mix, club
Yeah.
mix, obsessed. I need to be at like Star Wars Celebration or some kind of nerdy convention at a rave where they
Mhm.
play that mix because I'm gonna be Mon Mothma on the dance floor twirling and feeling
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
100%. I
fun.
did
I
like.
love that they brought that back.
Yeah, I am too, and at the start of it, it's a little different too. I mean, the whole
Mhm.
thing's different, but at the start, it's like completely different music that I was almost like, this is similar, but is it a remix? And then you get into it, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a remix. This is a
Yeah,
popular song. You know, at
I
this point,
know.
it's been over a year that it's been on the charts, played at weddings and shit. So,
Yeah, that's how you know it's old when it's become a classic and it's played at the weddings and all the kids scream like when the little
yo,
droid comes out and starts playing it. It was so funny. I'm like, and we've talked about this before. I love this kind of growth of the in-universe Star Wars music, and I love
Mhm.
that Niamos now has like 4 versions. Like
Yeah.
this is the fourth version.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just so fun.
Yeah, it's a popular thing for sure. One of the Easter eggs I noticed is at the beginning when the Imperial Inspector tells Cassian the password. The password is Kafrene,
Kafrene.
which we know the Ring of Kafrene from Rogue One. So
I'm an idiot. I thought the Ring of Kafrene. Oh, the planet Mando goes to in Book of Boba Fett.
yeah,
Not
no,
the same
not the
planet.
same planet,
Not
no.
close. That
But
one's actually a ring.
the
This
ring,
the Ring of Kafrene though is not. It's those 2 asteroids that are like
yeah,
built in a metropolis thing. I know
but
what you mean now.
but was it? it was announced in something at Celebration. Was it Mando that the Ring of Kafrine is gonna? No, it's the new game, the turntable game.
Zero Company.
Zero Company. Their Ring of Kafrine is in that.
This is a
So
big year for the Ring of Kafrine.
I know. I'm like, I know that Kafrine was in Rogue One, but is that all there is to the connection there, or is it something in universe possibly where it's all connected? I don't really know.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see the Kafrine massacre. Hopefully not. But I guess the
Not the
Kafrine
Kafrine
massacre is
massacre.
when Cassian kills that guy at the beginning of Rogue One.
Yeah,
Because he's
yeah.
like, you got a bad arm, you can't climb. Sorry, you're a liability. But I
Yeah.
guess we'll see him get to that point by the end of Andor season 2.
I know. Yeah, I'm so excited to see where it all goes. And you know what, Scotty? I'm proud of us. I'm proud of us because we knocked out these first 3 episodes, the first 3-hour Andor movie perfectly. It may have taken us an hour and a half to talk about it, but I think we did good. I know we've been a little stressed about how we're going to cover Andor, but I think we did good here.
Yeah. Maybe next time we can shoot for an hour. Depends on
Man,
what we get.
yeah. I have a feeling that these arcs are not going to slow down though or get any less intense. So
And there's
who
no
knows?
complaints there because honestly, we love the content.
Yeah.
Just as fans.
Yeah, 100%. Like it, it's very rare where Star Wars makes me act like I'm watching like a sports game, like football or something. Where I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But in the
Oh,
end, there when Cassian comes in, I'm like, fuck yeah. Like I'm going crazy. Like I'm in it. I'm fully in it. And like I said at the beginning, good Star Wars is back on the menu. I can't wait for these next 3 weeks.
yeah. I was definitely jamming the fuck out in the shower before this because the campy wedding, all of it, just I was
Yes.
like, I need Nicholas Bertel to put the Niamos mix from
Mhm.
season 2 on streaming now.
Yeah. Well, did you
It's
know that Nicholas Bertel actually isn't the composer for this season? It's kind of like a Mando and Book of Boba Fett situation where it's one of
oh
his
god.
assistants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, his assistant went off in this episode,
Mhm.
and I can't wait for it to be on Spotify.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I loved it. I loved this first arc, and like I said at the beginning, I'm very pleased and can't wait to see where it goes. But if there's nothing else left, Scotty, why don't you send us out of here?
To make sure you don't miss any of our Andor coverage, make sure you follow us on social media at Wayseekers Pod or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you all so much for watching or listening, and may the force be with you always.